Morning, this is Rabbi Shlomo Furst here at Yeshiva Tsama Nafshi, Yerushalayim here at Kodesh. We're located in the Beit Knesset of Chanukah Yeshivas, not too far from the central bus station. So if you're coming out of Yerushalayim, if you live in Yerushalayim, you can come quickly and easily to Tsama Nafshi, join us for our shirim. If you're coming from Furst to visit friends and family, just be here in Eretz Israel, make it as enriching as possible, and join us for our shirim. We'd love to have you here and have your participation. This is the second shir of the day, Mishna Berura. We're learning Hilchos Purim in Taf Reis Pei Chet. We're starting the dinim of those places where they have the Kriyas Megillah, depending whether or not they were walled cities at the time of Yeshua and Nun's, the conquest of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, any volunteers to start reading first? Kuf Nun Aleph on the base. Rahim, like to get?
Okay. Rakim hu amukafim chomam bimot Yeshua ben Nun. Rakim, cities that are surrounded by a wall at the time of Yeshua ben Nun. Afil einam mukafim shavim, if they're not surrounded by a wall now, koyim betet vav. Badar, yes. Badar, Tefla Badar. Afilu im hem chutzlatz, even if they are out of Eretz Israel. Afilu ein behem asra batlanim. Even if they don't have 10 batlanim, what that means.
We'll see what it says.
Perush batlanim imlachtam oskim betzorkei tzibur. They are not working, but they are busy with the needs of the public.
Very good.
And it is surrounded after it was settled.
First they had the settlement, and then they decided to wall the city.
Or that they sat and they settled it in the beginning on the knowledge that they will surround it afterwards.
Okay, so that's one of the conditions. It had to be first surrounded and then settled, or that they settle it on condition that they would eventually wall the city.
In the opposite way, Shinoda Shabtchila, that they were settled at first in the beginning, Al Dat Shelo Akifo, in the knowledge not to surround it by a wall.
Right. So if you would know for certain that it was originally settled and they didn't intend to have a walled city, right? But eventually they did have a walled city, so that apparently is going to be in a different category. Okay.
Mishtama hukfa lebsov shishva. Mishtama the hukfa was surrounded and it was surrounded by a wall, and in the end it was settled.
Right. So if you don't know what came first, so we can assume that there was first wall and then in the end it was settled. Okay, we'll see more details about that in the Mishna Berura. Let's not take a look at Mishna Berura Sifkat Na'alet. The city has to be, right, Mukufim, surrounded by a chayma wall from the time of Yeshua ben Nun. The Mishnah is going to give us a lot of background here. We want to primarily explain why it's dependent on Yeshua ben Nun. If you ask anybody, what does Yeshua ben Nun have to do with Purim, right? Not too many people are going to have a good answer for that. Right? Yeshua ben Nun lived many generations before the time of Purim, right? Could have been close to maybe almost 1,000 years before. Okay, let's see what the Mishna Berura has to say.
Mukafim choma b'imot Yeshua ben Nun. Kibizman Mordechai, at the time of Mordechai, be'et, and as at the time of the miracle, Ketiv, was written, Shayudim shebachol makom, that the Jewish people in all places, Nilchamu b'yom, Shosha Asa v'Nilchamu, they made war on the 13th, and the Nachman rested Yom Abbas on the 14th. They made war on the 13th and they rested on the 14th.
Right, so this is important to realize, okay? Meaning, again, when we have the fast of Esther on the 13th, Yud Gimel Adar, that was the day we went to battle. Right? That we went to battle on that day. That's why we fast. Because it is our custom that when we go out to war, it's a day of doing tshuva. We realize that the result of the war, the battle, is in the Kadosh Baruch Hu's hands. So we wish to try and become as close to Kadosh Baruch Hu through fasting and doing tshuva. So that's the fast that we fast on Yud Gimel Adar, which that was the day of the battle. Right? So keep his man Mordecai be'ez hanes at the time of that miracle. Right? So the miracle actually took place on Yud Gimel. The miracle of the battle of the war took place on Yud Gimel when the battle was fought. Yehudim b'kol makom nilchom b'yom shlosha asar. The Jews in all places battled on that day of the 13th. Menachamu, they came to rest, meaning the battle ceased, right, on b'yom arba asar, on the 14th. Right? That's when we ceased from the battle. Okay? On that day, only after the battle was won, and we came to rest on the 14th, then also Mishna Berura. That day, then, the 14th was made a day of feasting and joy. Okay?
Why was it such a short battle? Only one day. And on and Shushan another day.
Yeah.
But they had so many enemies that they took care of them in one day.
Because
That's a very
The army
short
was
war.
supposed to help them. The army was supposed to help them.
Huh?
The army was supposed to help them.
Yeah, well,
Which army?
The Persian army.
yeah.
Mordecai sent a second letter saying that the army was supposed to help the Jews.
Oh.
But besides that, the only those very committed Jew haters
Anti-Semites.
would ever really come to try and do battle against us. I mean, before when the first letter was sent out, when it was going to be a free for all, so anybody who would want to to join in would be free in. But when they realized what happened to Haman, he's been hanging up on the gallows that he prepared for Mordecai for the last 11 months, right? And they realized that amongst themselves that obviously the tide is turned in the favor of the Jews. So only those most fervent Jew haters in the world dared come against us, right? It says that the fear of the Jews were upon the people at the time, right? So they were isolated individuals, or maybe they were in certain groups or something like that, but they obviously didn't have the public support that they perhaps might have had originally, right? So then what HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually did, there was a tremendous bracha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did, that he allowed us to have a clear, isolated shot at all enemies in a very clear way, without there was no doubt about who was our enemies at that time. Because only the most diehard, and they died hard, they maybe died easy, I wasn't there, but the most diehard enemies of the Jews were willing to risk their lives at that point. Yeah.
So how many they'll fighting while fasting at the same time?
For sure.
How do they do that?
Take your sword and you slice.
No, but if there's no strength.
It was a one day fast, one day.
Yeah, that's okay.
Not during the night.
We got our strength from Kadosh Baruch Hu, not from steak and eggs.
Was they fasting that day?
Who was?
The Jewish people that were in
Yeah.
the battle?
Of course.
But I
Specifically.
thought they said that they fasted earlier.
On Yud Gimel, on Yud Gimel they fasted on Yud Gimel. That was the day of the battle. We don't need steak and eggs to fight battles.
How many
They
enemies-
fasted on Yudala?
No. Yudal was there, Mishna Berura.
Feast.
Yeah, Yud Gimel they fasted. Yud Gimel was the battle. Right? Take a look, go back.
all the enemies in the world?
Esther went to the Melech a year. That was year before. A year before.
Yeah. What is okay there?
And that's what they fasted.
That was a 3-day fast.
And then they fasted again?
For sure. Mishna Berura, go back, Tough Reish Pei Vav. Go back a
So
page.
they fought all
Tough
the
Reish,
world?
Tough Reish Pei Vav. Everyone have it there? Tough Reish Pei Vav.
Yeah.
Mishna Berura, Sif Cotton Base. You have it there about 8 lines down. This is Ani B'Yud Gimel Adar. We fast on the 13th of Adar.
Then in Yud Gimel Adar, Ki b'mei Mordechai, in the days of Mordechai and Esther, Nichalu b'yom Shosha Asar Adar. They gathered, assembled, and on the 13th of Adar, Lechem to make war, to battle, V'lamod, on Nafsham and to stand up to their enemies.
Right, to defend themselves. They
themselves.
gathered to battle on the 13th of Adar to defend themselves.
היו צריכים לבקש רחמים ותחנונים שיעזרם השם לנחם אויביהם. They needed to request rachamim and supplications that Hashem would help them to take revenge from their enemies. What Tzinu found, שהיו ביום מלחמה של מטענים. Then we found that at the day of the war, of the battle, that they were fasting. שכן אמרו רז"ל, as to say the רז"ל, the חכמים, שמשה רבינו עליו השלום, ביום שנלחם עם עמלק, היה מתנה. The day that there was war with Amalek in the desert, and that day there was a fast. היה מתנה, he was fasting. Not only Moshe, I guess everybody was fasting.
Right.
ואם כן, בוודאי, if this is so, then of course, גם אם מרדכי היו מתנים. What does that follow logically? What does that have to do with it?
Look, we learned out from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu that was our first battle against Amor. That was the first battle of Klal Yisrael in our history.
Right.
Right? So Moshe Rabbeinu taught us how to, everything we learned from Moshe Rabbeinu. So he taught us how to fight battles.
It's only with Amalek or any battle, for any people.
Anybody. We see by Shaul. Remember Shaul by Yonason?
Right.
He made a cherem. He didn't never did anyone would eat that day would be killed, and he found out his own son wasn't there when the announcement was made, and he had taken I think a little bit of devash, a little bit of water, so he'd eaten that day, and he had a big problem about killing out his own son.
The people didn't let him kill him.
No, they stopped him, but according to his own word, it was a very sad day in Klal Yisrael. Even though they won the battle, but it was a very tense point in the history of Klal Yisrael.
Amalek?
Excuse me?
Battle of Amalek?
No, Shaul was I think the Philistines.
Philistine, yeah.
They were always fighting Philistines.
I learned that there's two different kinds of wars.
Okay.
One is a spiritual war. That's where like the Greeks, the Hanukkah story, where they want to convert us. They don't necessarily want to kill us.
Correct.
They want to convert us. They want to stop us from learning Torah.
Correct.
And as opposed to a physical war, which is like Purim, where they're not interested in converting us, they just want to kill us. So I learned that we respond in the opposite way. In other words, if we're being attacked in a physical war, then we respond spiritually. If we're being attacked in a spiritual war, then we respond physically.
Right.
So that's the reason that we're fasting so much here in Purim, right? Because it's a physical. Correct?
Well, but according to the Mishna Berura, that is based on the Rambam, if I'm not mistaken, the actual battle, meaning we had the battle during Hanukkah and we had the battle during Purim as well, right? Even though on Hanukkah it was a spiritual and then Purim, but in both aspects we had to do. But the question is, what's the primary? Meaning, primarily, meaning the downfall of Haman was brought about because of the fast and the prayers of Mordechai and Esther and Esther Klal Yisrael, the 3-day fast. Right? The culmination of that 3-day fast led to the downfall, the hanging of Haman. Right? So that was a spirit. We didn't go and try and assassinate Haman. Right? That would have been the wrong strategy completely. Had that happened, right, we would have we'd cut our own throats. Because Haman was the viceroy to Achashverosh, and if a Jew had dared assassinate Haman, that would have been a proof to everything that Haman wanted to say to implicate the Jews that they were interested in the downfall of the kingdom. Right?
Right.
So a physical response would have been completely inappropriate. Right? So we can only respond, right, even in terms of the historical aspects, the military, the political aspects of the situation. We can only respond in a spiritual way by fasting and tshuva. Right? But when it came time to do battle, right? So that's why the Mishna Berura mentions la'amdu al nafshim. We had to defend ourselves if they were coming against us to physically. So we had to physically, do a physical act of defense.
Right. Okay. So since Moshe Rabbeinu was fighting against Amalek,
Mm.
and that's the physical scenario,
Right.
would we say that we only learn from that example how to deal with the physical attack and not necessarily the spiritual? Or would we say we learn from any time we have
I
an
think we can safely say that we can learn from both. If we take a look one moment, there is a Rashi here. Rashi says on the pasuk at the end of Parshas B'Shalach, when we read about the Molech, right, that they came. So the pasuk says as follows. V'yas Yeshua kasher Amar Moshe, and Yeshua did as he was told by Moshe. And he lachem b'Amalek, to fight against Amalek. And Moshe Aaron v'Hur all of the Rosh Giva. And Moshe and Aaron and Hur went up to the top of the peak. Okay, so Rashi says, Moshe Aaron v'Hur mikan lesanis tzrikas gimel la'avor lifnei teva b'tainis hayishruim. Says from here we learn that we learn here, we learn that when you're in a tinus, you need 3 people to go right in front of the teva, the Aaron. Sometimes they take it out, sometimes even so. You need 3 people to go in front of the teva, and they were sure they were in a tinus. Take that out. Just take it.
Shut up.
Just turn it off and go out. So you see that Rashi brings down that they were fasting at the time, which is basically what the Mishna Berura is teaching us here as well. Besides that, Bachar Lanu, Rashi says in the pasuk Tes, that was the first pasuk. It says, "Vayomer Moshe LeYeshua." Moshe said to Yeshua, "Bachar Lanu Anashim, choose for us people. With say Lilcham B'Amalek, go do battle against the Molech tomorrow. Anoki Nitzav al Rosh Pisca. I'll remain on the top of the peak. Umata Elokim Biadi, and the staff of the Kadosh Baruch will be in my hand." Right. So he says here, Rashi, that. Bachalanu, that teaches us that we wanted that we should machar to be going to fight against them tomorrow. Be'es muchama nochi nitzav. I'll be remaining there on the top. Bachalanu and Nafshi giburim. B'yirachet, they should be strong, right? Yirachet, should I fear the shed of sin? B'tei zuchson v'siyatam, and there's zuchus, their marriage, because they'll be yirachet. That zuchus should be to our benefit, to our help. With Deborah, Rashi brings another tribe. Bachar lanu anashim, you're doing the batul kshafim. Pick for us people, men that know how to nullify witchcraft. The feature b'nei Amalek mikachshafim, because the people of Amalek were sorcerers, right? So you knew what?
Still the old sorcerers?
Yeah, for sure. So you see that Moshe Rabbeinu took pains. He was very careful to choose people who were going to be fit to fight the war on all levels, spiritually and physically. Right? So this is our first battle, Klal Yisrael's first battle. The whole time when we were in Mitzrayim, the 10 plagues and the Yam Suf, we didn't raise a hand against the Egyptians. Right? That was completely in the hands of the Kadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak. We didn't do anything against the Egyptians. So we're coming out soon after the Yam Suf, So we were attacked by Moloch, so we had to defend ourselves. And again, as you said, ostensibly it was a physical battle. So we should have responded spiritually, which we did. We fasted. We said we picked people that should be Giborim Yirei, and their schus should be to our benefit. And also he picked people that could do war against sorcery as well.
Jews knew witchcraft as well?
Excuse me?
Were Jews who were experts in witchcraft as well?
Could be, yeah. So they mevatel. There are ways to mevatel. We don't need witchcraft to mevatel witchcraft. We know other ways to mevatel witchcraft. The more brings down several cases and points that examples where there were sorcerers or witches that tried to do things against the chazal, against the sages, and they mevatel them. There was if you know how their things work, you know how to foil their plans. So getting back to our point here. So on the Yud Gimel of Adar, that was when the battle took place, and that's when we fasted, right? Right. So that was the fast that we call Tainus Esther. That's what the Mishna Berura says, right? Lechein no kol Yisrael. That's the very end of Sifkat and Beis in Taf Reish Pei Vav. Lechein, therefore, Nogu kol Yisrael. All the Jews are accustomed Anus. B'shlosha Asr Ba'adar. All the Jews are accustomed to fast on the 13th of Adar. Nikrat Tainus Esther, and that's called Tainus Esther. Why? Kedei Lizkor Shashem Yizbarach Roya Mushomeya Kol Ish Be'ez Tzaraso Kashe Yis'anav Yashuv El Hashem B'Kol Lavavai Kamo Sha'aso B'Yamim Hahem. That we therefore all fast on Yud Gimel of Adar, right, to show, right, and to remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees each and every person in the time of his distress when he's going to fast and do tshuva wholeheartedly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's as they did in those days, and that's how we do in commemoration of that day of Yud Gimel Adar as well. And
maybe that was why it was a quick war, because they were fasting. If you have a war 2 days, you can't fast 2 days.
Yeah. Well,
3 days.
No. They would eat at night. In general, battles were not waged at night. Sunset brought an end to the battle in general. They never didn't do battle at night. It was first, it was too dangerous. They'd kill their own people. You wouldn't know who you're fighting against. But in very rare occasions, you see that there were battles waged at night. So sunset brought an end to the day of battle. They resumed the next day, but in general, they but in terms of the 3-day fast, if you just take a look at
that was a year before.
Yeah. So you see, if you look in the Taf Reish Pei Vav, Sif Gimel, it's the last 2 words on that page we were just on, right? Yesh, there are those standing that fast. Go ahead, Rick.
Yesh mitanim shlosha yamim zecher Tainus Esther.
Well, now it's also called Tainus Esther, right? And there are those who fast 3 days.
But that one was on Pesach. The other one.
Yeah. Oh, so when do we fast? Take a look. The Mishna Berura says in Sifkat and Chetz.
What'd you say?
The 3-day fast was on Pesach.
Pesach.
Yeah.
Shlosha Yamim. The Mishna Berura Sifkat and Chetz.
How can you fast on Pesach? You have a mitzvah to eat matzah.
Yeah. Well, by Mordechai. If we ate matzah that day, that was the last matzah we had in Klaus or whatever eaten.
Mordechai made a decree that
Esther said to Mordechai, if you want me to go into the king and he hasn't called me, I'm risking my life, I'm willing to do it, but I need the help of Klal Yisrael to be successful. Because a person comes into the king without permission, they're as good as dead. So she was risking her life, and she said if the Jews will fast, she fast 3 days, 3 days and 3 nights.
mitzvah deraisa.
About what?
You can make a takana to push off a mitzvah deraisa.
That's right. Yeah. Especially it's comes to
Koch nefesh.
Would you say?
Koch
nefesh.
Bituach?
Danger to life.
How would you translate that?
Danger to life?
Yeah.
Danger to life.
Bituach nefesh.
Danger to life.
So just take a look at the Mishna Berura here. 3 days. Let's try 3 days.
3 days. Shlosha yamim, Lerush Sheni, Chamishi Sheni. Not 3 days in a row, but Monday, Thursday, and Monday again the next week. Acha Purim, after Purim.
Right. So it's not on Pesach, and it's not 3 days straight. It's 3 days intervalling for starting on a Yom Sheni, then the Chamishi following, then the Yom Sheni after that. Those 3 days after Purim. There are some that fast that way. Some do it. Some do it.
But
Originally,
he was on Pesach.
yes, the first
And
two
was
days
there-
before 2 days before Pesach, and in general, according to most opinions, that day of Pesach was the last day of the fast.
And it was
In-
consecutive.
Yeah. Yes,
Isn't that a sakana?
of course it's sakana, but you have no choice.
Yes,
Yes,
those things
Esther
were
was,
strong.
Esther was going into, there was more of a sakana of Esther going into the king uncalled for. He could have taken a head off right away.
Well, why not, I mean, you could fast 2 days and it wouldn't be such a sakana. I mean, 3 days without
No, because
water.
she had to set this whole situation up. She had to set up, remember, she had the two Mishnas. The third Mishnah took place on Pesach, right? The first Mishnah took place on the day before Pesach.
The first
Right.
Mishnah?
Mishnah.
Party.
Mishnah? Oh, Mishnah.
Mishnah, right? The first Mishnah took place on Erev
What's
Pesach.
Mishnah?
The
Party.
party.
Party with Mordechai. It was Haman and Achashverosh.
She asked, Achashverosh, she had to go in and ask.
Mishteh or
Mishteh.
Mishteh?
The first time she went in, she was chayiv, right? So they had to fast 1 day before she could go in originally, bichlal, right, to go see Achashverosh. So he said he extended the scepter to her. He said, okay, what do you want? She said, Adachetzi Malchus, right? Can have it up until half the kingdom. She said, no, I'm not interested in the Malchus. I want to have a party, you and Haman. I want to make a party tomorrow, right? So that was 3 days, but that day was 3 days before Pesach. The next day, 1 day for Pesach was the first party with Haman and Achashverosh, right? And then he asked, well, what do you want? He says, I want another party, right? And that second party was the third day, which was on Pesach.
So she didn't need it during the Mishnah, during the
Oh,
feast.
so Esther
She
herself,
didn't need.
that she did. There's a whole explanation about that. She, in fact, ate before she went into the second Mishnah. Why? Because it's brought down that a person who doesn't eat or drink for 3 days emits a reach ra, it emits a foul odor from the body. And if she would appear before the king with a foul odor, off on her head, that would be the end of that, right? So she had to eat, there's a diak in the Lashon, diak in the Lashon,
Women don't understand how great we are.
that she in
That's what my
fact ate,
wife left
I
me.
think before the third day, on the third day,
So she
before the
fasted
second.
only 1 day?
2 days, if I'm not
2 days
mistaken,
she fasted.
fast, I think she said 2 days. Because it says she and her servants, I think it's, everyone should fast, and she and her servants, have to look at the pasuk. There's a certain diak in the pasuk which they explain.
Well,
that.
her servants didn't fast either?
They did.
Maybe not the third day, I have to see that, it's a whole explanation surrounding that.
We understand that many Jewish people died as a result of the fast.
No,
We
we
said
don't mention nothing.
Whoever brought that up.
No,
What?
Whoever brought that up. I
no
never
one
heard that.
mentioned it, the children, in
Well,
fact,
I'm
the
just
children.
saying if
The children were fasting. Everybody had to fast
They're-
3 days.
Even the
The
animals were
children,
fasting.
yeah, man. So the children, right? Mordechai was there, and the night before, going into the third day of the fast. The children were there learning with Mordechai. They were crying, asking for a Kadosh Baruch Hu to save Klal Yisrael. Right, their mothers came in and said, "Look, you got to eat. Your children, you got to eat. The children said, "No, we'd rather die hungry, right? Learning Torah with Mordecai, right? Rather than die by the hands of Haman with food on our stomachs." And Haman came in at that point, and at that point, when they said that to their mothers, it says the Medrash says that their cries at that point went up to the Kisei covered. And that was ripped the gezerah. At that point, they said, when the children said, "We don't want to eat. We'd rather die hungry, learning Torah with Mordechai, rather than die at the hands of Haman with food on their stomachs." That ripped up the decree against Klal Yisrael, and then everything was just a matter of playing it out at that point.
So the reason I'm asking the question is, Derek Teva, you would expect that if today the entire Klal Yisrael fasted for 3 days, there would be thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people who would die.
Not necessarily.
You know, there are people who fast Shovavim
Was
a
that
whole
was
week.
that a miracle that Notre
No,
Dame?
no. Look, in general, it's a sakana to fast for 3 days, in general. But I know there's stories.
In South Africa, they fast 2 days for Tisha B'Av
Yeah.
to this day. Tisha B'Av, they do 2 full days. They don't do 1 day like we do.
I remember
And
hearing.
Shovavim, Shovavim people fast for 7 weeks, for 7 whole weeks, except eat on Shabbos. I know people like that.
Yeah,
I met
I
people.
know, I know my Rebbe, one of my Rebbe's, his Yurtzeit is coming up this week, I think. So it's, he was in Morocco after the war, he came to,
Yeah.
he went to Morocco, and he said there are people that, the whole week they fast.
My great-grandfather.
Yeah, that's
Shovavim,
right.
my great-grandfather's in my family.
All
holy-
Shabbos, all
Eat at
Shabbos.
night.
They
No, they don't eat it. They don't eat
No
it.
no eating,
No eating, no
that's it.
drinking for 7 days. All they do is they learn, they daven, they read Zohar all day. My great-grandfather was one of those people. And there's people in Israel today who do that, who continue that custom. They only do it for 1 week, they can't do it 7 weeks, but there are people who continue doing those
He
things.
told me his story. There was one son, his fellow's father, he would do this, only eat from Shabbos for Shabbos, right? So his son said, I want to know it this way also. So I said, oh, get yourself ready. So he usually started the fast after Malka.
Right.
So he sat his son down for Malka. He had like 12 loaves of bread. 12 loaves of bread. He says, what's this? He says, you have to eat these 12 loaves of bread. So I said, what are you talking about? I want to know how to fast. He says, before you know how to fast, you have to learn how to eat. So,
No, fasting in Sephardic countries, especially Morocco, was a very big thing.
Okay, we'll have to stop here. We'll continue more tomorrow. Okay.